The chandeliers sparkled above the grand dining room of Belmont's, one of the most exclusive restaurants in New York City. The polished marble floors reflected the warm glow of candlelight, and the air carried the faint aroma of truffle, garlic, and expensive wine. Waiters glided between tables like dancers in perfect rhythm, carrying silver trays stacked with plates that cost more than a week's rent. At the edge of this world of elegance and power, Mary Moore adjusted her black uniform, her palms damp with nervous sweat. She was 21, with wide hazel eyes and a quiet way of moving that made her nearly invisible in a room full of noise. That was how she liked it. She had learned the art of invisibility young. Blend in, stay quiet, never draw attention. People looked through her instead of at her, and that was perfect. The fewer people who noticed Mary, the safer she felt. But tonight, she was struggling to hold on to her calm. "Mary," Heather, the head waitress, called from the host's stand. "Table 9 needs another bottle of Merlot. Move quickly, and for God's sake, don't spill it." "That's Mr. Moretti's table." Mary froze. Her eyes flickered toward the center of the room, where Jack Moretti sat with two men in dark suits. Even from across the dining hall, his presence was overwhelming. He leaned back in his chair with casual authority, one arm resting on the table, his sharp eyes scanning the room as though he owned every soul in it. Jack Moretti. The name carried weight like a loaded gun. Heir to the Moretti empire, an empire built on both legitimate business and whispered rumors of darker dealings. He was young, barely 30, but already feared. Mary had seen him here before. He came often, always with men who looked like shadows in tailored suits. He never smiled, never joked, never showed weakness. And in all the months she had worked here, he had never once looked at her. And she intended to keep it that way. Clutching the expensive bottle of wine, Mary willed her trembling hands to stay steady. She walked carefully across the marble floor, keeping her eyes down, keeping her movements small. To him, she was just another waitress. She prayed it would stay that way. But as she approached, a sharp voice cut through the clinking of cutlery. "Excuse me." Mary froze, her heart leaping to her throat. The voice wasn't harsh, but it was commanding, deep, smooth, and impossible to ignore. She looked up and nearly stumbled. Jack Moretti was staring directly at her. His dark eyes pinned her in place. His hair was jet black, perfectly styled, his suit immaculate. The cut of his jaw looked like it had been carved by some merciless sculptor. He was dangerously handsome in a way that made her stomach twist. "Yes, sir," Mary whispered, holding the bottle like a shield. Jack's head tilted slightly. "Not me." He gestured to the elegant woman sitting beside him, a woman with silver hair tied neatly back, a diamond necklace resting against her collarbone, and warm eyes that crinkled with kindness. She looked older, maybe in her early 60s, and though her smile was soft, there was something regal about her presence. "She has been trying to get your attention," Jack said evenly. "For several minutes." Mary turned toward the woman, confused. That was when she noticed the subtle movements of the woman's hands. Signs. Her breath caught. Without thinking, Mary set the bottle on the nearest table and stepped closer. Mary signed smoothly. "Good evening. How may I help you?" The older woman's entire face lit up with joy. Her hands moved quickly in response, her expressions animated. "Oh, how wonderful! I was hoping to compliment the chef on the risotto. It reminds me of my grandmother's cooking in Naples. It has been years since I tasted something like it." Mary's lips curved into a genuine smile, the first one she'd worn all night. "I'll make sure the chef receives your kind words," she signed back. "Would you like me to ask him about the preparation? I believe he uses a special saffron blend from Sicily." The woman laughed silently, her shoulders shaking, her hands flying as she spoke in her silent language. "Yes, please. You are so kind. Most people only smile and nod when they see me signing. But you actually speak my language." Mary's throat tightened. "I grew up with a deaf cousin," she said softly, signing and speaking at the same time. The words slipped out before she could stop them. And instantly, she regretted it. She had been so careful, so deliberate, never giving anyone a piece of her real past. But now. Interesting. Jack's voice was low, measured, but sharp enough to cut. Mary turned slowly. He was watching her with an unreadable expression, intense, dark, as though he could see straight through her. "You speak sign language fluently," he said, his tone calm but probing. "What else are you hiding, miss? More, is it?" Mary's heart thudded painfully. She swallowed hard, clutching the wine bottle again as though it might anchor her. "It's just something I picked up as a child, sir. Nothing important." Jack leaned back in his chair, swirling the wine in his glass. His gaze never left her face. "Nothing important," he repeated softly, as though testing the weight of the words. Mary's chest tightened. She had the distinct, terrifying feeling that this man, this Mafia Heir, could unravel every secret she had worked so hard to bury. I should get back to work," she said quickly, her voice shaking slightly. She reached for the bottle, intending to retreat, but Jack's hand shot out. He caught her wrist, not harshly, but firmly enough to stop her in her tracks. The contact jolted her like electricity. Jack's eyes flickered, as though he felt it too. Then his tone softened unexpectedly. "I was harsh," he admitted quietly. "That was unnecessary. My mother doesn't connect with many people. Your kindness means more than you know." Mary hesitated, torn between the instinct to pull away and the strange vulnerability she saw flicker in his eyes. "Your mother is lovely," she said softly. "She was telling me about Naples." Jack studied her for a moment longer, then released her wrist slowly. Mary stepped back, her heart pounding. She had survived the moment, but she knew, deep in her bones, that she had just drawn Jack Moretti's attention, and there was no going back from that. 3 days later, Mary still couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. She had expected to be fired. She had broken the golden rule: never draw attention to yourself. Instead, Heather had handed her an envelope with a generous tip and a handwritten note inside. "Thank you for seeing my mother. J.M." The neat, bold handwriting made her stomach flutter in a way that unsettled her. Now it was Tuesday evening. The restaurant was quieter than usual, the hum of voices subdued, the tables half full. Mary was refilling water glasses when the hairs on her arms prickled. That strange feeling of being watched. She turned her head and froze. Jack Moretti sat alone at his usual table, his dark eyes tracking her movements across the restaurant. Unlike other nights, he wasn't surrounded by men in suits. He wasn't talking business in hushed tones. Tonight, he was alone. And it felt deliberate. Mary's throat went dry. "Mr. Moretti would like to speak with you when you have a moment," the manager whispered as he passed by, his face pale. His tone was firm, leaving no room for refusal. Then he added in a low voice, "Be careful. That family, they don't forgive." Mary's heart pounded in her chest. She glanced at Jack's table, where he sat calmly, sipping his wine, his gaze never wavering from her. This wasn't a request. It was a summons. With trembling hands, Mary approached, clutching her notepad like a shield. "Good evening, Mr. Moretti," she said softly. "How may I help you?" Jack gestured to the chair across from him. His tone was polite, but his words left no room for escape. "Sit down, Mary." She hesitated, every instinct screaming to run. But she lowered herself into the chair, her palms flat against her lap. Jack studied her for a long moment, his gaze sharp, unreadable. Finally, he spoke. "I think," he said slowly, "we need to have a conversation about who you really are." Mary's pulse thundered in her ears. She forced her voice to stay calm. I don't know what you mean." Jack's lips curved in the faintest hint of a smile, though his eyes remained cold. He swirled his wine in the glass, watching it catch the light. "Your accent slips sometimes," he murmured. "Boston, if I'm not mistaken. And you flinch when certain names are mentioned. Names like O'Malley. Or Flanagan." Mary froze. She couldn't breathe. Jack leaned closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "You can hide from everyone else. But not from me." Mary swallowed hard, her chest tight with fear. She had worked so hard to build this new life. A waitress. A student. An ordinary girl. But Jack Moretti had begun to unravel it in a matter of minutes. "I'm just a waitress trying to get through college," she whispered. Jack's gaze didn't soften. "No," he said quietly. "You're something much more than that. And I intend to find out exactly what." The restaurant felt different that night. The chandeliers still glimmered, the marble floors still reflected the golden glow of the lamps, but to Mary everything seemed sharper, every sound louder, every shadow heavier. She had been restless for 3 days. Jack Moretti's words, "You're something much more than that. And I intend to find out exactly what," echoed endlessly in her head. She told herself to keep her head down. Serve drinks, refill glasses, smile politely. Nothing more. No mistakes. But fate had other plans. It was Isabella Moretti again. The older woman entered the restaurant with the same dignified grace as before, her diamond earrings catching the light. She wasn't accompanied by Jack this time, only a discreet driver who guided her to her favorite table. Isabella's hands moved subtly as she adjusted her seat, her eyes scanning the staff until they landed on Mary. Mary's chest tightened. She knew what was coming. "Table 12 wants you," Heather whispered in her ear, her voice laced with irritation. "Don't take too long, Mary. That's Mrs. Moretti. You do not keep her waiting." Mary smoothed her apron and walked over, her steps slow and careful. She stopped at Isabella's side and signed, "Good evening. It's lovely to see you again." Isabella's face brightened instantly. "And you," her hands replied with energy. "I was hoping you'd be here tonight. Tell me, what is your name?" Mary hesitated. Every instinct told her to lie. But those kind eyes made it hard to. "Mary," she signed. "Mary Moore." Isabella smiled warmly, her fingers fluttering with delight. "Mary. A beautiful name. You remind me of my granddaughter, though she is far more stubborn. Do you study languages? Your signing is perfect." Mary's cheeks warmed. "I study linguistics," she admitted. "I've always loved languages." The older woman leaned closer, her eyes gleaming. "That explains it. You have a gift. Most people stumble with sign. But you speak it with feeling, as though you truly understand it." Mary's throat tightened. Memories flickered. Her cousin Daniel, laughing as he taught her sign in their Boston kitchen, both of them hiding from the shouting of their families in the next room. Daniel, who had been deaf from birth and was the only one Mary had ever truly connected with. She forced herself back to the present. "Thank you," she murmured, keeping her voice low. For the next 10 minutes, Isabella chatted animatedly, her hands moving gracefully as she told stories about Naples, about her grandmother's garden, about how the smell of saffron always reminded her of home. Mary responded with polite smiles, her own hands moving in reply. She was so focused on Isabella that she didn't notice the shift in the air until it was too late. The restaurant had grown quieter. Mary glanced up and found herself locking eyes with Jack Moretti. He stood at the entrance, his tall figure framed by the golden lights of the chandelier. His expression was unreadable, but his gaze was sharp, heavy. He wasn't looking at anyone else. Only at her. Mary's breath caught. He strode across the room, people instinctively parting for him, their conversations dipping into hushed tones. When he reached the table, Isabella smiled up at him warmly and signed, "You're late, my son." Jack leaned down to kiss her cheek before pulling out the chair beside her. He sat with fluid grace, his presence filling the space like a storm cloud. His eyes, however, never left Mary. "Mother," he said softly, switching easily between speech and sign. "I see you found someone worth talking to." Isabella's hands danced with amusement. "She is wonderful. Did you know she speaks signs so beautifully?" Jack's gaze sharpened. "Yes," he murmured. "I know." Mary's pulse quickened. She could feel his scrutiny, his silent questions pressing against her. She shifted uncomfortably, her hands twitching at her sides. "I should get back to work," she said quickly. But Isabella caught her wrist gently, her touch warm and kind. "Stay a little longer." You make me feel seen." Mary froze. The words pierced her heart. She thought of all the times she had watched Daniel's face fall when people dismissed him, pretending not to understand his signing. The ache in Isabella's eyes was the same. So she stayed. She signed with Isabella, asking about Naples, about family, about food. She smiled more than she had in weeks. And though she tried not to, her gaze kept flickering toward Jack. He watched in silence, his hand absently swirling the wine in his glass, his dark eyes unreadable. But every time Mary signed, she felt the weight of his stare. And she knew, deep down, that he was trying to solve her, piece by piece. Later that night, as the dinner crowd thinned, Mary was carrying a tray of empty glasses when Heather intercepted her. "Table 12, Heather said with a tense expression. "Mr. Moretti wants to see you. Alone." Mary's stomach dropped. She set the tray down and wiped her hands on her apron, her heart thudding. This wasn't a choice. Not when it came from Jack Moretti. He was waiting at the corner table, alone this time, his posture relaxed but his gaze razor-sharp. A glass of red wine sat untouched in front of him. Mary approached slowly, her palms damp. "Mr. Moretti," she said softly. "How can I help you?" Jack gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit." Her throat tightened. "I really shouldn't. I wasn't asking." The words were calm, not loud, but they carried the kind of authority that left no room for refusal. Mary lowered herself into the chair, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. She avoided his gaze, staring at the polished wood of the table. Jack leaned forward slightly, his eyes fixed on her. "You sign fluently," he began. "Not clumsy, not learned from a book. Fluent. Where did you learn it?" Mary's lips parted. "I told you. I had a deaf cousin." Jack tilted his head, studying her. "That's not the whole truth." Mary's chest tightened. He swirled his wine slowly, watching the liquid move. "You speak a rare dialect. Southern Italian sign. My mother noticed it. That's not something you pick up from a cousin in Boston." Mary froze. His gaze flicked up, catching her shock. His lips curved in a faint, dangerous smile. "Ah, Boston," he murmured. "So I was right." Mary's breath quickened. Jack leaned back in his chair, his eyes never leaving her. "You hide it well. The way you move, the way you speak. But sometimes your accent slips. And when certain names are mentioned, O'Malley, Flanagan, you flinch. Just slightly. But I notice." Her blood ran cold. Jack lowered his voice, his tone soft but lethal. "So tell me, Mary Moore, or whatever your real name is, who are you running from?" Mary swallowed hard, panic rising in her chest. "I'm just a waitress," she whispered. "Trying to get through college. That's all." Jack studied her for a long moment, then shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "That's the mask. But masks crack." He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "And yours is cracking, Mary." Her pulse hammered in her ears. She wanted to run, to flee the table, to hide. But his eyes held her captive, dark and unyielding. Finally, she found her voice. "You've been watching me." The realization slipped out before she could stop it. Jack's lips curved into a faint smirk. "I watch everyone. That's how I stay alive." He paused, his gaze softening just slightly. "But you're different." Mary's breath caught. She opened her mouth to reply, but before she could, Heather appeared at the edge of the table, her expression tight. "Mary, we need you in the kitchen." Mary stood quickly, relief and dread colliding in her chest. But Jack's final words stopped her cold. "Don't run too far, Mary. I always find what I'm looking for." The following night, Mary thought she might finally breathe easy. Dinner service had been unusually calm. No Morettis in sight, no sharp eyes pinning her to her chair, no whispered orders from Heather warning her of powerful guests. She kept her head down, focused on her tables, and pretended the last week hadn't happened. But when she returned to her locker at the end of her shift, a small white envelope waited for her. Her name was scrawled across the front in bold, elegant handwriting. Mary's fingers trembled as she tore it open. Inside was a note written in black ink. "You're full of secrets. I intend to learn them. J.M." And tucked behind it, a folded $100 bill. Her breath caught. The edges of her world blurred. This wasn't just curiosity anymore. Jack Moretti was hunting her. "Everything okay?" Heather's voice startled her. Mary snapped the envelope shut, tucking it into her pocket. "Fine. Just tired." Heather squinted at her. "Be careful, Mary. Guys like him don't notice girls like us unless they want something. And when a Moretti wants something, it's never small." Mary forced a weak smile, but inside, her chest was tight with panic. She walked home that night through the dim city streets, clutching the note in her pocket. Every shadow felt heavier, every footstep behind her sharper. She tried to convince herself she was imagining things. But when she reached her small apartment and switched on the light, she froze. On the kitchen counter sat a single white rose in a glass of water. Her roommate wasn't home. No one had keys but them. And tied to the rose was another note. "Next time, don't look so frightened. I'm not your enemy. Yet." Mary's knees went weak. She clutched the counter for balance, her heart hammering in her chest. He had been here. He knew where she lived. She wanted to scream, to rip the note to pieces, to throw the rose away. But instead, she found herself sinking into a chair, staring at it, her hands shaking. Because beneath the fear was something else. Something dangerous. Something that whispered, "He noticed you. He sees you." The next evening, Jack returned to the restaurant. He entered with the same quiet authority, his presence tilting the air around him. Tonight, he was alone again. Mary tried to avoid his gaze, but it was impossible. His eyes tracked her every movement like a predator watching prey. When she approached his table, her hands were clammy against the tray. "Good evening, Mr. Moretti. May I bring you something?" Jack looked up, his gaze slow and deliberate. "You," he said simply. Her stomach flipped. "Excuse me." "You," he repeated, his voice low, measured. "Sit." Her breath caught. "I can't." "You can," he said, his lips curving into the faintest hint of a smile. "And you will." Mary glanced around. Heather was at the host's stand, glaring but not daring to intervene. The other waiters pretended not to see. Everyone knew better than to cross a Moretti. So Mary sat, her heart racing, the tray clutched against her chest like armor. Jack studied her, his eyes dark and unreadable. "You look nervous." "Because you make me nervous," she admitted before she could stop herself. He leaned back, amused. "Good. That means you're smart." She bristled, cheeks flushing. "Or it means I know danger when I see it." His smirk deepened. "Dangerous, am I?" Mary's pulse thundered. She wanted to deny it, to say yes, "You are, stay away from me." But instead, her voice betrayed her. "You tell me." The silence stretched between them, heavy, electric. Finally, Jack reached into his jacket and slid an envelope across the table. Mary hesitated before opening it. Inside was another crisp bill and a handwritten line. "Your kindness meant something to my mother. This is thanks. Not payment." She swallowed hard, her chest aching with confusion. "You don't have to do this," she whispered. "I know," Jack said simply. "That's why it means something." Mary gripped the envelope tightly. She wanted to throw it back at him, to scream at him to stop circling her like a hawk. But when she looked up into his eyes, the words stuck in her throat. Because for the first time, she saw something else flicker there. Something that wasn't cold calculation. Something dangerously close to curiosity. 2 nights later, Mary's shift was nearly over when the manager pulled her aside. "Mr. Moretti wants to see you," he whispered, pale. "Private dining room." Mary's stomach dropped. She followed the manager down a side corridor, her palms sweating. The private dining room was smaller, more intimate. Dark wood walls, a single chandelier, a long table set for two. Jack sat at the head of the table, his jacket draped over the chair, his shirt sleeves rolled up. He looked powerful even in this relaxed state, as though the room bent around him. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the chair beside him. Mary sat slowly, her heart thundering. "Why am I here?" Jack poured 2 glasses of wine, sliding one toward her. "Because I don't like mysteries I can't solve." She shook her head. "I'm not a mystery. I'm just a waitress." He studied her for a long moment, then leaned forward. "No, you're not." Her chest tightened. "You speak a rare dialect of sign. My mother says even some interpreters don't know it. You flinch when my men mention Irish names. And your accent, Boston. You've tried to hide it, but I notice." Mary's breath caught. Jack's voice lowered. "Tell me, Mary Moore, or should I call you by your real name?" She froze. For a moment, she was back in Boston, hiding in the cramped kitchen with Daniel, listening to her father's men shout in the next room. Patrick O'Malley's daughter. The one who ran. The one who disappeared. Her voice came out in a whisper. "You don't know what you're talking about." Jack leaned closer, his gaze sharp. "I know enough. Enough to know you don't belong here. Enough to know you're running from something." Mary's throat burned. "And what if I am?" His lips curved in a dangerous smile. "Then you're even more interesting than I thought." She shook her head, tears stinging her eyes. "You don't understand. If you know who I am, if anyone else finds out, then you're in danger," Jack finished softly. Mary's chest heaved. "Exactly." He leaned back, his expression unreadable. "Then maybe you should stop running and start choosing your allies more carefully." Her pulse quickened. "Are you offering yourself as an ally?" His eyes locked on hers, steady, intense. "I'm offering you survival." The silence between them crackled. Mary's heart pounded as she stared at him, torn between fear and something else, something far more dangerous. Finally, she whispered, "Why me?" Jack's voice was quiet, almost gentle. "Because my mother likes you. And because I don't believe in coincidences." The first flakes of winter snow floated lazily through the New York air as Mary made her way to work. She pulled her scarf tighter around her neck, her boots crunching softly against the pavement. Normally, she loved the first snow. It felt clean, like a new beginning. But tonight, there was no comfort in it. Tonight, every shadow seemed to follow her. Inside Belmont's, the warmth of the chandeliers and the clink of glasses felt almost suffocating. Mary moved automatically, setting tables, pouring water, smiling politely. She tried to convince herself that tonight would be normal. Then she saw him. Jack Moretti sat alone at his usual table, a glass of red wine in hand, his dark eyes fixed on her. Her stomach sank. She told herself to avoid him, to hide in the kitchen, to focus on other tables. But it was useless. The manager appeared at her side, pale and stiff. "Mr. Moretti has requested you personally," he said. His voice trembled, as though he was delivering a summons from a king. Mary's hands shook as she approached. She placed the wine bottle on his table, forcing her voice steady. "Good evening, Mr. Moretti." "Sit," Jack said simply. She hesitated. "I'm working." He cut her off with a look. Calm, patient, but unyielding. The kind of look that told her resistance was meaningless. Mary sat. Jack studied her in silence for a long moment, sipping his wine. The quiet stretched until Mary's nerves frayed. Finally, he leaned forward. "How's Jamie?" Her entire body went rigid. She stared at him, her throat dry. "What did you say?" "Jamie," Jack repeated smoothly, swirling his wine. "Your younger brother. College in Vermont. Plays basketball, doesn't he? Not bad either, from what my men tell me. Top scorer last season." Mary's blood turned to ice. How do you? I know everything I need to, Jack interrupted, his voice calm, almost casual. Like the fact that 3 weeks ago, a man followed Jamie after practice. Same man was seen outside his dorm twice. Big guy. Scar over his right eyebrow. Ring any bells? Her heart slammed against her ribs. Declan. One of her father's most ruthless enforcers. No, she whispered, shaking her head. No, you're lying. Am I? Jack's tone didn't change. My men stepped in before anything happened. Jamie never even knew. But you do. Mary's hands clenched in her lap. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to understand, Jack said softly, his eyes locking onto hers. You think you ran from that life. But that life hasn't run from you. It's still chasing you. And sooner or later, it's going to catch you. Her vision blurred. Panic, fear, anger, all of it swirled inside her. You had no right, she hissed, to watch him, to follow him. I had every right, Jack cut in, his voice sharp now. Because your enemies are my enemies. And when Flanagan makes a move on your brother, he's not just targeting Jamie. He's targeting me. Mary's breath caught. Flanagan. Jack leaned closer, his voice lowering to a dangerous whisper. You know the name. Don't pretend you don't. Her chest heaved. She wanted to deny it, to shove away the truth pressing in from all sides. But she couldn't. Not when he said it like that. Not when his eyes burned through her lies. Finally, her voice broke. What do you want from me? Jack didn't hesitate. The truth. The words hung between them like a trap. Mary swallowed hard, her throat tight. But she couldn't give it. Not yet. So she whispered, I can't. Jack leaned back slowly, his expression unreadable. Then I'll wait. But know this, Mary, truth has a way of finding us. And when it does, running won't save you. The snow was falling harder by the time Mary left work that night, flurries swirling like ash in the cold air. She wrapped her coat tightly around herself, but the chill seemed to seep into her bones. Jack's words echoed in her head. Flanagan. Jamie. They're coming for you. She wanted to dismiss it, to believe he was manipulating her, trying to scare her. But deep down, she knew better. She had seen Declan's scar in her nightmares too many times. The next evening, she found herself in the restaurant's private dining room again. Jack sat waiting, his posture calm, his expression unreadable. On the table between them lay a slim leather folder. What's this? Mary asked warily, her hands twisting together. Evidence, Jack said simply. Her chest tightened. Of what? He slid the folder toward her. Open it. Mary hesitated, then flipped it open. Inside were photographs. Grainy surveillance shots of men she recognized instantly. Irish faces from Boston, men who had filled her childhood with shadows. Her throat constricted as she turned the pages. Bank statements. Wire transfers. Notes scribbled in handwriting she knew all too well. At the center of it all, one name appeared again and again. Sean Flanagan. Mary's breath caught. Jack's voice was quiet but sharp. He's been making deals with the Russians. Moving money behind your father's back. Ordering hits on your brothers. On Jamie. Mary shook her head, panic rising. No. Flanagan is loyal. He's always been loyal. Jack leaned forward, his eyes locking onto hers. Loyalty shifts when power shifts. And your father is slipping. Everyone can see it. Everyone but you. Tears stung Mary's eyes. He wouldn't. He raised us. He was family. Jack's tone hardened. Family doesn't plan hits on children. Look at the dates, Mary. 2 months ago. Right after you showed up here. Right after he realized you were still alive. Mary's hands trembled as she traced the notes, the photographs. She recognized Declan's face in one of the shots, lurking outside a college campus. Jamie. She pressed her fist to her mouth, trying to hold back a sob. Jack's voice softened. "Now you understand why I'm telling you this. You can keep lying to yourself. Pretend you're just a waitress. Or you can face the truth. Your family is tearing itself apart. And if you stay silent, it'll swallow your brother whole." Mary's tears spilled over. "Why are you helping me?" Jack's gaze didn't waver. "Because Flanagan is my enemy too. And because my mother likes you." His lips curved in a faint, humorless smile. "That makes you valuable to me." Mary looked down at the evidence again, her chest heaving. For the first time since she had run from Boston, she realized there was no escaping her past. The shadows had found her. And now she was standing between two worlds, one that had betrayed her and one that had claimed her. It began with a look. Mary was refilling a glass of water when Heather brushed past her, pale and stiff, whispering under her breath. "Don't look, but there's a man at the bar asking about you." Irish accent. Scar above his right eye. Mary froze, her breath caught in her throat. Gar. Right eye. Declan. Her blood ran cold. Slowly, she set the pitcher down, her hands trembling so violently that water sloshed over the edge of the glass. She dared a glance toward the bar. There he was. A hulking figure in a leather jacket, his posture too still, too sharp. The jagged scar down his temple caught the chandelier's glow. He wasn't drinking. He was watching. Watching her. Mary's pulse roared in her ears. She needed to move. She needed to disappear. But her legs wouldn't obey. She was rooted to the spot, her chest tight with terror. And then Jack was there. He appeared out of nowhere, sliding into the space beside her like a shadow. His hand closed around her elbow, steady and firm. "Don't look again," he murmured, his voice low, calm, commanding. "He's here for you." Mary's heart pounded. "What do I?" "Nothing." Jack's grip tightened. "I'll handle it. But you're leaving. Now." Before she could respond, Jack was already moving, steering her toward the kitchen with quiet authority. Mary's mind spun. "If Declan sees me." "He's already seen you." Jack's tone was grim. "But he won't touch you. Not here. Not tonight." The kitchen doors swung open as they slipped inside. The staff looked up in alarm, but Jack's presence silenced any questions. He guided Mary down the narrow corridor, past steaming pots and clattering pans. Her chest heaved. "Where are we going?" "There's a service exit," Jack said. "Leads to the alley. My driver's waiting." Mary stumbled to keep pace, her pulse racing. "You can't just. Would you rather stay?" Jack snapped, glancing back at her. His dark eyes burned with intensity. "Because if you walk out the front door, you'll disappear before dessert is served." Mary swallowed hard, fear clawing at her throat. She knew he was right. They reached the end of the corridor. Jack pushed open a heavy door, revealing a dimly lit hallway lined with crates. The air was thick with the smell of grease and smoke from the restaurant vents. "Move," Jack ordered. Mary hurried forward, her hands trembling. Behind them, the faint creak of the kitchen doors echoed. Jack's head whipped around. He swore under his breath. "They're coming." Panic surged in Mary's chest. "Oh God!" "Run," Jack commanded. And she did. Her feet pounded against the concrete as she sprinted down the corridor, Jack close behind. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed after them, growing louder, closer. The hallway twisted, the dim light flickering overhead. At the far end, Jack shoved open a metal door. Cold night air hit them like a slap. A black SUV idled in the alley, its headlights cutting through the shadows. "Get in," Jack barked. Mary scrambled forward, but a shout behind her froze her blood. "Mary!" Declan's voice. Rough, sharp, unmistakable. She spun involuntarily, just in time to see him charging down the corridor. His scarred face twisted in a snarl. Jack pulled a gun from his jacket in one smooth motion, aiming without hesitation. The crack of the shot echoed off the alley walls, sparking concrete inches from Declan's feet. "Keep moving," Jack roared. Mary stumbled toward the SUV, her chest heaving, her vision blurred with panic. The driver threw the back door open. She dove inside, gasping for breath, her hands shaking uncontrollably. Jack slid in beside her, slamming the door shut. "Go!" he barked. The SUV roared to life, tires screeching against wet pavement. As the city blurred past the tinted windows, Mary pressed herself into the corner of the seat, her entire body trembling. She had known this day would come. She had run for years, hoping the past would never catch up. But now, it had. Jack lowered his gun, his breathing steady, his gaze fixed on her. "You see now," he said quietly. "You were never invisible. Not to them." Tears stung Mary's eyes. She hugged herself tightly, her voice breaking. "Why are you helping me?" Jack's expression softened slightly, though his eyes remained sharp. "Because I don't like watching people get hunted. And because, whether you want it or not, you're mine now." Mary's breath caught, fear and something else twisting inside her. The city lights faded behind them as the SUV carried her into the unknown. When Mary woke, the world was quiet. She blinked against soft morning light filtering through wide windows. The sheets beneath her were smooth, the air faintly scented with lavender. For a brief, disorienting moment, she thought she was safe. Then she remembered. The chase. The gunshot. Jack's words, "You're mine now." She sat up quickly, scanning the room. It was spacious, rustic, with polished wood floors and stone walls. A fireplace crackled quietly across the room. This wasn't her apartment. This was a cage. The door opened. Mary stiffened as Isabella Moretti entered, her silver hair tied neatly back, her kind eyes warm. She carried a tray of tea, her hands steady despite her age. "You're awake," Isabella signed with a gentle smile. Mary's chest loosened slightly. She signed back, "Where am I?" "Safe," Isabella replied simply. She set the tray on the table beside the bed. "This is one of our homes. Far from the city. No one can reach you here." Mary swallowed hard. "Why am I here?" Isabella's gaze softened. "Because my son would not forgive himself if something happened to you. And because I would not forgive him either." Mary's throat tightened. She lowered her eyes, ashamed of the fear shaking through her. "I didn't ask for this," she whispered. "No one asks for the past they're born into," Isabella said softly, her voice accented but kind. Before Mary could respond, footsteps echoed down the hall. Jack appeared in the doorway, his presence filling the room instantly. His jacket was gone, his shirt sleeves rolled up, his dark hair slightly disheveled. "Good," he said, his eyes sweeping over her. "You're awake." Mary bristled, clutching the blanket around her. "You had no right. Bringing me here, trapping me." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Would you prefer I left you with Declan?" Her voice faltered. Jack stepped further inside, his gaze unyielding. "You're alive because of me. Don't forget that." Mary's chest heaved. "And now what? You expect me to thank you? To owe you?" Jack's lips curved in a faint smirk. "Not thank me. Not owe me. Just listen." She glared at him, but he ignored it, moving to the window and gazing out at the forest beyond. "Flanagan won't stop. He'll keep sending men until he gets what he wants. And right now, what he wants is you." Mary's stomach twisted. "Why? I'm nothing." Jack turned, his eyes locking onto hers. "You're Patrick O'Malley's daughter. That makes you something." Her breath caught. Jack continued, his voice calm but edged with steel. "He'll use you as leverage. Against your father. Against your brothers. Against anyone who stands in his way. That's who Flanagan is. Ruthless. Calculating. Disloyal." Mary shook her head, her eyes burning. No, he raised us like family. Jack cut her off. He raised you to be pawns. And you ran. That makes you dangerous to him. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She wanted to scream, to deny it, to run from the truth. But deep down, she knew Jack was right. Silence hung heavy between them. Finally, Isabella placed a gentle hand on Mary's shoulder. "Drink," she signed. "You need your strength. There is more fight ahead of you." Mary's hands trembled as she lifted the teacup. Jack watched her, his gaze unreadable. She hated him for trapping her here. She hated him for knowing the truths she had spent years burying. And yet, she also hated the way her heart calmed, just slightly, when he said, "You're safe here." Because for the first time in years, she almost believed it. The safe house was quiet, too quiet. Days blurred together in the lakeside retreat, where the morning sun spilled across glassy water and the nights echoed with nothing but crickets. Mary had thought she would welcome peace, but instead, it unnerved her. She wasn't used to silence without dread behind it. And she wasn't used to him. Jack Moretti moved through the safe house like he owned every inch of air. Sometimes he was gone for hours, sometimes days, returning with a tired face and blood on his knuckles. Sometimes he stayed, working silently at the long oak table with papers spread around him, glancing up occasionally when she crossed the room. Mary hated how aware she was of him. The sound of his footsteps, the way his sleeves rolled up past his forearms, the intensity of his focus when he looked at her, like she was a puzzle he was halfway to solving. She wanted to despise him. But her body didn't always listen. One morning, she found him outside near the lake, practicing with a gun. The shots cracked sharp across the still air, each one slamming into the target with frightening accuracy. Mary hesitated by the doorway, then cleared her throat. "Do you ever miss?" Jack lowered the weapon, glancing over his shoulder at her. A faint smirk tugged at his lips. "Not when it matters." She stepped onto the grass, her arms folded. "Is that supposed to be comforting?" "It's supposed to be true." Her gaze drifted to the weapon in his hand. Her stomach twisted with memory, her father's voice teaching her to hold a pistol steady, Declan's hand forcing hers around cold metal. She shuddered. Jack noticed. "You've handled one before." Mary stiffened. "Not by choice." He studied her for a long moment, then extended the gun toward her. "Then this time, choose." Her eyes widened. "I'm not." "You think Flanagan men care if you're ready?" Jack's tone sharpened. "They won't hesitate. If you freeze, you die. If you shake, your brother dies. If you don't learn, you lose everything. So—" He tilted the gun slightly. "Choose." Mary's pulse thundered. Every instinct screamed to back away. But another part of her, buried deep, the part that remembered running through Boston alleys with Daniel, the part that remembered swearing never to be a pawn again, forced her hand forward. She gripped the gun. It was heavier than she remembered. Cold. Alive in her palms. "Good," Jack said softly. "Now aim." He moved behind her, adjusting her stance, his hand brushing her elbow. Heat shot through her skin at his touch. "Breathe," he murmured near her ear. "Slow. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. Don't fight the recoil. Control it." Mary's hands trembled. She squeezed the trigger. The shot cracked, jerking her back. The bullet hit the target, low and wide. "Again," Jack said. She fired again. Closer this time. Again. Again. Until her shoulders ached and her ears rang, until sweat slicked her palms. Finally, Jack lowered her arms gently. "Not bad." Mary's chest heaved. She looked up at him, her hazel eyes fierce. "Not good enough." Jack's lips curved faintly. "That's the point. You'll keep getting better. Or you'll die." She scowled. "You're really inspiring, you know that?" His smirk deepened. "And yet you listened." Mary turned away, but her heart betrayed her, racing not with fear this time but with something far more dangerous. That night, she lay awake staring at the ceiling. She hated him for pushing her. She hated him for being right. And most of all, she hated how safe she felt knowing he was in the next room. 3 days later, Jack summoned her to the oak table where he had been working. Papers, photographs, and a laptop lay scattered across it. Mary sat slowly, her stomach twisting. "What is this?" "Proof," Jack said. She frowned. "Of what?" He slid a folder toward her. "That Flanagan isn't just after you. He's after your brothers, too." Mary hesitated before opening it. Inside were documents, bank statements, and messages. Names leapt out at her. Jamie. Sean Jr. wire transfers linked to Russian accounts. Orders written in shorthand but clear enough in their meaning. Her throat closed. "No," she whispered. "No, he wouldn't." Jack cut her off. "He would. He has. Look." He clicked the laptop, opening a string of intercepted messages. One in particular made Mary's stomach lurch. "The boy in Vermont is soft. Easy target. No backup. Make it quick. Send a message." Mary clapped a hand over her mouth, bile rising. Jack's gaze stayed steady. "Do you believe me now?" Tears burned her eyes. He's my father's man. He raised us like family. Family doesn't order hits on children," Jack said coldly. Mary shook her head, her hands trembling as she shoved the papers back. "This can't be real. It's fake. You forged this." Jack slammed his palm against the table, making her flinch. "You think I'd waste my time forging evidence?" His voice was sharp, dangerous. "Wake up, Mary. Your father is losing control. Flanagan is moving pieces behind his back. He's using you, using Jamie, using all of them to grab power. And if you keep pretending otherwise, you'll hand him the knife he'll use to slit your family's throat." Mary's chest heaved. Tears blurred her vision. She wanted to deny it, to scream at him. But deep down, in the pit of her gut, she knew the truth. She had seen the way Flanagan looked at her when she was younger, not as family, but as leverage. She had heard whispers in Boston kitchens late at night, her father's men muttering about loyalty and ambition. She had always ignored it. But now, staring at the proof in front of her, she couldn't ignore it anymore. Jack's voice softened. "I know what it's like to carry the weight of a family's sins. To hate the blood in your veins. But denial won't save Jamie. It won't save you. And it won't save them." Mary looked up at him, her face streaked with tears. "So what do I do?" Jack leaned closer, his eyes burning with intensity. "You stop running. You face it. With me." Her heart pounded. For the first time, she felt the walls inside her cracking, the ones she had built to keep him out, to keep herself safe. And in that moment, she realized she had a choice. Keep pretending she was invisible, or step into the fire. Mary's voice shook, but her words were steady. "I'm done running." Jack's lips curved faintly, not quite a smile, but something close. "Good. Then we start tonight." Snow fell thick and heavy the night Jack told her. They sat at the oak table in the safe house, the fire burning low. The air smelled of pine wood and smoke. Jack's jacket hung over his chair, his white shirt sleeves rolled up, a half-drunk glass of whiskey sweating beside his laptop. He pushed a slip of paper across the table. Mary's eyes dropped to it. A time. An address. Dockside. Tomorrow night. Her chest tightened. "What is this?" Jack leaned back, his gaze sharp. "A meeting. Flanagan called for it. Your father agreed. Neutral ground." Mary's stomach dropped. "A sit-down." Jack nodded. "Which means it's a trap." She swallowed hard. "My father, he'll know. He'll see what Flanagan doing." "He won't." Jack's tone was grim. "Your father trusts Flanagan too much. Blind loyalty. Years of it. That's how betrayal works." Mary shook her head, her hands trembling. "No, if I talk to him, if I show him the proof, he'll believe me." Jack's eyes burned into hers. "Or he'll think you're lying. That you've been turned. That you're mine." Her chest ached at his words. Because weren't they true? She was sitting here with Jack, listening to him, believing him more than her own father. But the image of Jamie flashed in her mind. Declan's scar. The notes calling for her brother's blood. Mary set her jaw. "I have to try." Jack's expression darkened. "It'll be suicide." "Maybe," she said softly. "But I won't watch my family burn without saying anything." The silence stretched, thick and heavy. Finally, Jack cursed under his breath, slamming his glass down hard enough to make it crack. "Then we do it my way." Mary looked up, startled. "Your way?" He leaned forward, his voice low and deadly. "You'll go in. Alone. He won't listen otherwise. My men will be outside. Watching. Waiting. If Flanagan makes a move, we shut it down." Mary's heart pounded. "And if my father doesn't believe me?" Jack's eyes didn't waver. "Then we fight our way out." The words settled over her like ice. That night, Mary couldn't sleep. She lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. She thought of her father's face, the lines deeper now than when she last saw him. She thought of Jamie, still blissfully unaware of the noose tightening around him. She thought of Daniel, her deaf cousin, signing "Run, Mary. Don't look back." And she thought of Jack, his eyes, his voice, his presence. A storm she should have feared, but that she had come to lean on. By dawn, she knew. Tomorrow night, one way or another, everything would change. The warehouse loomed against the night sky, its corrugated metal walls slick with snow. Yellow light spilled from the high windows, illuminating the docks below where waves slapped against wooden pilings. Mary's heart hammered as she stepped from the car. The cold bit through her coat, her breath puffing white in the frigid air. Jack caught her arm before she moved forward. "Remember," he murmured, his voice a low growl. "Keep your hands visible. Don't make sudden moves. Speak to him directly. Show him the proof. If it goes wrong—" He hesitated, then pressed a small pistol into her palm. "Use this." Mary's throat tightened. "I don't." "Use it," Jack said firmly. His hand lingered over hers, steady, unyielding. "If it's him or you don't hesitate." She nodded, slipping the gun into her coat pocket. He studied her one last time, his gaze sharp, protective. Then he stepped back into the shadows. Mary forced her legs to move, crunching across the icy ground. She pushed open the heavy door and slipped inside. The warehouse smelled of salt and old fish, the air damp and heavy. Dim lamps lit the space, throwing long shadows across stacked crates. At the far end, two men sat at a table. Her father. And Sean Flanagan. Patrick O'Malley looked older than she remembered. His once broad shoulders were stooped, his thick hair streaked with gray. But his eyes, sharp, steel blue, were the same. Flanagan sat beside him, his face a mask of false calm, though his cold eyes flicked up the moment she entered. Mary's heart clenched. She whispered. Her father's head jerked up. His eyes widened, disbelief and something raw flashing across his face. "Mary!" Flanagan leaned back in his chair, his mouth curling into a smirk. Well, look what the cat dragged in." Patrick pushed to his feet, his voice breaking. "My God, girl, where have you?" "She's with them," Flanagan cut in smoothly, his hand sliding toward his jacket. "With the Morettas. Can't you see? This is their trap." Mary's pulse pounded. She rushed forward, pulling the flash drive from her pocket and sliding it across the table. Listen to me. He's lying. Look at the files. Bank transfers to Russians, orders for hits on Jamie, on Sean Jr. He's been betraying you for years." Patrick's hands trembled as he stared at the drive. "What is this?" "The truth," Mary pleaded. "Please. Before it's too late." Flanagan's eyes flashed with rage. In one motion, he lunged across the table, grabbing for the drive. "Lies!" he snarled. "She's poisoned you." But Patrick was faster. He snatched the drive and shoved it into a laptop one of his men handed over. The screen glowed. Emails. Transfers. Orders. Silence fell. Patrick's face hardened, his jaw clenched, his hands shaking with fury. "You." His voice was low, dangerous. "After all these years." Flanagan's mask cracked. His hand shot toward his gun. Mary screamed. But before he could draw, another figure stepped from the shadows. His pistol was leveled steadily at Flanagan, his dark eyes cold as stone. "Don't," he said softly. The warehouse erupted. Men shouted, guns drawn, the air electric with violence waiting to spill. Patrick's roar cut through the chaos. "Enough." Everyone froze. His eyes, when they rose from the laptop, were the eyes Mary remembered from childhood, cold, calculating, and merciless. "Sean Flanagan," Patrick said, his voice deadly calm. "You've betrayed me." Mary's chest heaved, her heart pounding so hard it hurt. She looked at Jack. He hadn't lowered his gun. His gaze was steady, locked on hers. And in that moment, she knew, the world she had fled had finally caught her. And there was no going back. The warehouse was still. For one frozen moment, no one moved. Guns gleamed under the weak lamplight, fingers twitching on triggers, breath misting in the cold. Mary's heart hammered so loudly she thought it might give her away. Her father's gaze was fixed on Flanagan, his blue eyes colder than the docks in winter. "You," Patrick O'Malley said, his voice low, almost calm. "After all these years." Flanagan sneered. "You're a fool, Patrick. Too blind to see the Morettus bleeding us dry. Too soft to take what's ours. I did what you couldn't." Patrick's jaw tightened. His hand brushed the edge of the laptop, where the evidence glowed on the screen. Transfers. Messages. Betrayals too large to deny. "You did what no O'Malley man does," Patrick said. His tone dropped lower, darker. "You betrayed blood." Flanagan's hand twitched toward his jacket. Jack's pistol shifted instantly, steady and unflinching. Mary's breath caught. She wanted to scream, to stop this spiral, but her voice failed her. The moment snapped like glass. Flanagan lunged. Patrick roared. Jack fired. The warehouse exploded in chaos. Gunfire cracked like thunder. Men shouted in Irish and Italian, curses and orders overlapping into a storm of violence. Crates splintered, bullets tore through wood and steel, sparks showered the concrete floor. Mary dropped low, her heart slamming against her ribs. A hand grabbed her shoulder, Declan, dragging her back. His scar glistened with sweat, his teeth bared. "You shouldn't have come back, girl," he snarled. Before Mary could react, Jack was there. His fist connected with Declan's jaw, sending him crashing against a stack of crates. "Move!" Jack barked, grabbing Mary's wrist and pulling her into the cover of a steel pillar. Bullets whined past, ricocheting off metal. Mary clutched the pistol in her coat pocket, her hand trembling. She had never wanted to use it. But now, with her father's men and Flanagan thugs tearing each other apart, she knew she might have no choice. Across the chaos, Flanagan ducked behind the table, his gun spitting fire. His voice rose above the noise. "She's with them, Patrick. She's with Moretti. Can't you see it? She betrayed you too." Mary's chest tightened. She saw her father glance toward her through the storm, confusion, pain, betrayal flickering in his eyes. She screamed. "He's lying. I came to warn you." But her words were swallowed by gunfire. Jack leaned close, his breath hot against her ear. "We need to move. Now." "No," Mary whispered fiercely. "If I leave now, he'll believe Flanagan. He has to see the truth." Jack's eyes burned into hers. For a moment, he looked like he might drag her out by force. Then he swore under his breath. "Fine. But stay low." They moved. Mary crawled along the side of the crates, Jack covering her, his gunfire precise and lethal. She reached the table where her father still stood, fury etched into his lined face. Please," she begged. She shoved the laptop toward him, the evidence still glowing on the screen. "Look, he planned to kill Jamie. He ordered hits on Sean Jr. He's been selling you out for years." Patrick's hands shook as he read. His face hardened, fury boiling in his eyes. Flanagan rose from cover, his gun aimed directly at Patrick. "It's too late, old man. You've already lost everything." The shot rang out. Patrick staggered, but it wasn't his blood. Flanagan froze. He looked down, stunned, at the hole blooming in his chest. Behind him, Jack lowered his gun. His face was stone. "You should have aimed better," Jack said coldly. Flanagan crumpled to the ground, his lifeblood staining the concrete. The warehouse fell silent. The gunfire ceased. The O'Malley men looked to their leader. Patrick stood tall, his eyes sweeping the room. Then he looked at Mary. His voice was heavy, final. "You saved me tonight, but you crossed a line coming here with him." Mary's throat ached. "Did I?" "You're not one of us anymore," he said sharply. "You made your choice when you ran. You made it again when you stood with him." Tears blurred Mary's vision. "Please." Patrick turned away. "Go. Before I change my mind." The words cut deeper than any bullet. Jack's hand closed gently around her arm. He pulled her back, steady and silent. They left the warehouse together, the snow swallowing the sounds of the sea. Behind them, Sean Flanagan's body lay cooling on the cold concrete. And Patrick O'Malley, her father, had just exiled her forever. The days that followed blurred into quiet. Mary sat in the Moretti estate gardens, the air warmer here than on the docks. Sunlight fell across the roses Isabella tended, their red blooms bright against the green. Isabella's hands moved gracefully, telling stories of Naples, of Jack as a boy. He was stubborn, she signed with a soft smile. Always fighting, always questioning. His father hated it. But I knew. It meant he was strong in a different way. Mary watched her, her throat tight. She wanted to believe that. She wanted to believe Jack was different, not just another man cut from the same bloody cloth. But the memory of the warehouse haunted her. Her father's face. His voice, sharp and final. "You're not one of us anymore." She had lost one family. Was she simply falling into another cage? Footsteps crunched on the gravel. Jack appeared, his jacket slung over his shoulder, his face tired but steady. "They confirmed it," he said simply. "Your father's leaving Ireland. Sean Jr. will take over." Mary's chest tightened. "And Hill?" Jack met her eyes. He agreed to the truce. No war. For now. She exhaled shakily, relief and sorrow tangled in her chest. Jamie was safe. Sean Jr. would live. But the price was her place. "I'll never see him again," she whispered. Jack didn't answer right away. He walked closer, his presence heavy but not suffocating this time. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. "Sometimes survival means letting go of what you thought you needed." Mary blinked back tears. "And what about you? What do you need?" Jack studied her. His eyes softened. "Not much, but enough. To make sure this family doesn't repeat the mistakes of the last one." She searched his face, trying to see past the hard lines, the cold calm. She saw something there. Not redemption, but intent. "I don't know if I can trust you," she admitted. Jack's lips curved faintly. "Good. Don't. Trust makes people sloppy. But maybe you can walk beside me anyway." The words lingered in the air. Not a declaration. Not a promise. But an opening. Mary looked at Isabella, still tending roses, her hands moving with practiced grace. Then she looked back at Jack. Her father had cast her out. Her old life was gone. But maybe here, in this fractured, dangerous new world, she could carve something different. "I'll walk," she said softly. "But if you betray me." Jack's smirk sharpened, almost amused. "Then you'll shoot me. And I won't even be surprised." For the first time in days, Mary laughed, a short, broken sound, but real. The roses swayed in the breeze, red petals catching the light. The past was gone. The future was unsteady. But for now, there was this moment. And maybe, just maybe, it was enough. The Moretti estate was different now. It wasn't that the walls had changed, or that the roses in Isabella's garden bloomed brighter. It was that Mary felt the shift inside herself. When she had first arrived, the marble halls felt like a cage, every gilded door a reminder that she wasn't free. Now, she walked them without fear. Not because she was safe, she knew better than that, but because she had stopped running. Every morning, Isabella summoned her to the sunroom, where wide windows spilled light across polished floors. There, Mary found a new rhythm. They sat together at a wooden table, their hands weaving through signs as Isabella taught her Italian Sign Language, and Mary, in return, showed her American Sign Language's subtle differences. Soon, others joined. Soldiers, servants, even young cousins from the extended family. Men with broken noses and tattooed knuckles sat awkwardly, struggling to shape their hands into something gentle. Women laughed nervously, correcting each other's signs. Mary found herself guiding them, patient, encouraging, teaching them that silence didn't have to be empty, it could be powerful. One afternoon, a burly soldier named Marco signed clumsily, "How are you today?" Isabella clapped her hands softly in delight. Mary smiled. "Good," she signed back, slowly so he could follow. "And you?" The man flushed like a schoolboy. "Learning," he said aloud, and the whole room chuckled. Mary's chest warmed. For the first time in years, she wasn't just surviving. She was giving something. But not everything was light. At night, the house still vibrated with whispers of power. Deals struck. Enemies watched. Jack disappearing for hours, sometimes days, returning with shadows in his eyes. One night, Mary found him in the study, hunched over maps and files. A single lamp burned, casting his face in gold and shadow. "You don't sleep, do you?" she said softly from the doorway. Jack didn't look up. "Sleep is a luxury." She walked closer, eyeing the papers scattered before him. Territory lines. Names. Numbers. "This is all you now, isn't it?" she whispered. "Your father's empire." Jack leaned back, rubbing his jaw. "Not his. Not anymore. I'll run it differently." Mary tilted her head. "Differently how?" His gaze flicked to her, sharp, searching. For once, he didn't hide. "Less blood," he said. "More control. My father thought strength was fear. I know it's order." Mary folded her arms, studying him. "And where do I fit in this order of yours?" For a long moment, Jack didn't answer. Then he rose, closing the distance between them. His presence filled the room, steady and heavy. "You walked into that warehouse knowing you might die," he said quietly. "You stood in front of Patrick O'Malley and tried to save him, even after he cast you out. That takes more than courage, Mary. It takes conviction." Her breath caught. Jack's hand lifted, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. His touch was surprisingly gentle. "That's the kind of strength I need beside me." Mary's chest ached with something she didn't want to name. Fear. Hope. Longing. All tangled together. "I don't know if I can trust you," she whispered. Jack's lips curved faintly. "Then don't. Trust isn't what keeps people alive in this world. But belief, maybe that's enough." Mary searched his face, her heart hammering. He was dangerous, ruthless, a man born of violence. And yet, standing there, she saw more. She saw the boy Isabella had spoken of, stubborn, questioning, unwilling to be his father's mirror. Slowly, Mary nodded. "Then I'll believe. For now." Jack's smirk softened into something almost like a smile. "That's all I ask." The moment stretched, warm and fragile, like the pause between lightning and thunder. And for the first time since Boston, Mary let herself breathe without fear. Winter gave way to spring. The Moretti estate buzzed with change. New men came and went, whispers of treaties replacing whispers of war. Patrick O'Malley was gone, exiled back to Ireland. Sean Jr. now held the Irish mantle, cautious but pragmatic, aligning with Jack instead of against him. It was a fragile peace, but it held. Mary stood in the garden one afternoon, the sun warming her skin as Isabella's roses bloomed around her. She signed instructions to a group of young cousins, laughing when they stumbled over their words. For a moment, she almost forgot where she was. She wasn't a fugitive, or a pawn, or a traitor's daughter. She was just Mary. A teacher. A woman shaping something new. Footsteps crunched behind her. She turned to find Isabella watching, her silver hair gleaming in the sun. "You've changed this house," Isabella signed, her hands graceful. "You've changed my son." Mary's throat tightened. "I don't know if that's true." Isabella's smile was knowing. "It is. Before you, he carried only shadows. Now, I see light in him again." Mary blinked back tears, her chest heavy. Before she could respond, Jack appeared at the edge of the garden. He wore a black suit, his tie loosened, his expression sharp but tired. He looked every inch the air, the dawn, and yet, when his eyes met hers, something softer flickered there. "Come with me," he said. She followed him into the study, where maps and contracts lay spread across the desk. "It's official," Jack said, pouring himself a drink. "My father's men pledged today. The syndicate is mine." Mary studied him. He looked older, heavier with the weight of it, and yet steadier too. "And what will you do with it?" she asked softly. Jack took a sip, then set the glass down. His gaze locked onto hers. "Build something different. Stronger. Smarter. Without the chaos. Without the waste." Mary raised a brow. "Without the blood?" His lips curved faintly. "Less blood. But in this life, it never disappears entirely." She nodded, her chest tight. She had known that. She had accepted it the moment she stepped into the warehouse. Jack stepped closer, his eyes burning. "But with you here, it won't consume me." Mary's breath caught. "Why me?" His answer was simple. "Quiet. Raw. Because you don't flinch." Silence hung between them. Then, slowly, Jack reached for her hand. His grip was firm, steady, unyielding. Mary let him hold it. For the first time, she didn't feel like a pawn caught between kings. She felt like a piece of the board itself, one that could change the game. Jack's voice dropped lower. "No regrets. Only beginnings." Mary's chest ached. Tears pricked her eyes, but she smiled, small, fragile, real. "Then let's begin." The sun dipped low beyond the windows, painting the estate in gold. And in that moment, Mary Moore, the waitress who had once run from her past, stood at the side of Jack Moretti, heir to an empire no longer running. Not from her family. Not from her fear. Not from herself. Together, they faced the storm. And for the first time, Mary didn't feel like she was surviving. She felt like she was home. And that was the story of Mary and Jack, the waitress who became the silent strength behind a mafia empire. But what would you have done in her place? Would you run? Or would you stay and face the fire? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next tale of love, betrayal, and power.